The morning of my wedding, I woke up in my childhood bedroom with sunlight streaming through lace curtains my mother had hung 20 years ago. I should have felt nervous. Most brides do, I'm told. Instead, I felt calm, certain, like I was exactly where I belonged. Michael had that effect on me. He made everything feel right. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, expecting the usual good morning text from him. Instead, I found 3 missed calls from his best man, David, and a voicemail that made my stomach drop. Emma, hey, it's David. Look, I need to talk to you before the ceremony. Something's come up. Call me back as soon as you get this. His voice was tight, strained in a way I'd never heard before. David was usually the calm one, the steady friend who kept Michael grounded. If he sounded worried, something was very wrong. I called him back immediately. He picked up on the first ring. Emma? Thank God. Listen, are you sitting down? David, what's going on? Is Michael okay? Did something happen? Michael's fine. Physically, anyway. But Emma, there's someone here. Someone who says she needs to speak with you before the wedding. My heart hammered against my ribs. Who? There was a long pause. Too long. She says her name is Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. The name meant nothing to me. I waited for him to explain, but the silence stretched between us like a held breath. David, who is Sarah Mitchell? Another pause. Then, quietly, she says she's Michael's wife. The phone slipped from my hand. It clattered against the hardwood floor, David's voice a distant echo calling my name. I stared at the ceiling, counting the familiar water stains I'd memorized as a child, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. Wife. Present tense. I picked up the phone with shaking fingers. That's impossible, I whispered. Michael was married before, yes, but Sarah died. She died in a car accident 3 years ago. He told me. Emma, I know how this sounds. But she's here. She's real. She's very much alive. And she's asking to see you. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of my bed, feeling like I might fall even though I was sitting down. Where is Michael? He locked himself in the groom's suite at the venue. He won't come out. He won't talk to anyone except to say that you need to speak with Sarah first. I closed my eyes. This wasn't real. This was some terrible dream, some anxiety-induced nightmare brought on by wedding stress. In a moment, I'd wake up, laugh about it, and get ready for the happiest day of my life. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. But when I opened my eyes, the room was the same. The wedding dress hanging on my closet door was the same. And David's voice, careful and concerned, was still coming through the phone. Emma, I know this is a lot. But she seems genuine. She knows things about Michael that only someone close to him would know. She has pictures, documents. And she's not demanding anything or making threats. She just wants to talk to you. What does she want from me? She says she needs to tell you the truth about why she disappeared. And about why Michael told everyone she was dead. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady. My wedding was supposed to start in 4 hours. 4 hours until I walked down the aisle to marry the man I loved more than anything in the world. The man who had apparently lied to me about the most fundamental fact of his past. Where is she now? At the Marriott downtown. Room 412. She said. She'll wait for you as long as it takes. I looked at my reflection in the mirror across the room. My hair was still in rollers, my face bare of makeup. I looked young, vulnerable, nothing like the confident woman I'd felt like just minutes ago. Emma? What do you want me to tell Michael? Tell him I'll talk to her. But David? After I do, he and I are going to have a very long conversation. I hung up and sat in the silence of my childhood room, surrounded by the remnants of the girl I used to be. My high school trophies lined the bookshelf. My prom photos smiled down from the wall. Everything from before I met Michael, before my life became tangled up in his. I thought about the night he first told me about Sarah. We'd been dating for 6 months, and I'd noticed he never talked about his past. When I finally asked, he'd gone quiet for a long time, staring out at the lake where we'd gone for a picnic. I was married before, he'd said finally. Her name was Sarah. She died in a car accident 3 years ago. His voice had broken on the word died, and I'd reached for his hand, feeling the weight of his grief settle between us. I'm so sorry, I'd whispered. She was driving home from work. It was raining. The other driver ran a red light. He'd turned to me then, his eyes bright with unshed tears. I thought I'd never love anyone again. And then I met you. It had been such a beautiful, tragic story. The kind that made you grateful for second chances, for the unpredictable way love could heal even the deepest wounds. I'd felt honored that he trusted me with his pain, that he'd chosen to open his heart again despite the risk. Now, sitting in my childhood bedroom with my wedding dress mocking me from across the room, I realized how perfectly crafted that story had been. How carefully he'd woven in just enough detail to make it believable, just enough emotion to make it heartbreaking. I called my maid of honor, Jessica, and asked her to come over. Emma? You sound weird. Everything okay? No. Everything is very much not okay. Can you just come? I need to go somewhere, and I need you to handle things here. Of course. Give me 10 minutes. Jessica had been my best friend since college. She knew me well enough not to ask too many questions when my voice had that particular edge to it. When she arrived, I was dressed in jeans and a sweater, my hair still in rollers. Jess, something's come up. I need you to call the vendors, tell them we might need to delay everything. Don't cancel anything yet, just delay. Her eyes widened. Emma, what's going on? Are you having second thoughts? Michael's first wife is alive. She's at a hotel downtown, and she wants to talk to me. Jessica blinked slowly, processing. I'm sorry, what? His wife. The one who supposedly died in a car accident? She's very much alive and apparently has something important to tell me about why she disappeared. Holy shit. Jessica sank onto my bed. Okay, we can handle this. Do you want me to come with you? I shook my head. No. I need to do this alone. But can you handle everything here? Call the photographer, the caterer, the florist. Tell them there's a family emergency and we need to push everything back by a few hours. Of course. Emma, are you sure you don't want me to come? This sounds like a lot to handle on your own. I looked at her, this friend who'd been there through every major moment of my adult life. Who'd helped me pick out my wedding dress, who'd thrown me a bachelorette party, who'd been planning to stand beside me as I married the love of my life. I need to hear what she has to say. All of it. Without anyone else there to filter it or soften it. I need the truth, even if it destroys everything. Jessica nodded. Call me as soon as you're done. No matter what happens, we'll figure it out. The drive to the Marriott took 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. I kept the radio off, letting the silence fill the car while my mind raced through possibilities. Maybe this woman was delusional. Maybe she was lying, trying to ruin Michael's wedding for some twisted reason. Maybe there was an explanation that would make everything make sense again, but deep down, in a place I didn't want to acknowledge, I already knew. I'd always known something was off about Michael's past. The way he changed the subject when certain topics came up. The way he had no photos of Sarah, claiming they'd been too painful to keep. The way his friends never mentioned her, even in passing. I'd told myself it was grief, that everyone processed loss differently. I'd been understanding, patient, careful not to push too hard. But understanding and willful ignorance weren't the same thing, and I was beginning to realize which one I'd been choosing. The Marriott lobby was busy with weekend guests checking in and out. I took the elevator to the 4th floor, my reflection wavering in the polished doors. I looked pale, young, like someone playing dress-up in an adult's life. Room 412 was at the end of a long hallway. I stood outside the door for a full minute. My hand raised to knock, trying to gather the courage to hear whatever truth waited on the other side. Finally, I knocked. The woman who opened the door was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd pictured someone glamorous, someone who would make me understand why Michael had lied. Instead, Sarah Mitchell looked tired, ordinary, like someone who'd been carrying a heavy weight for too long. She was shorter than me, with brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and kind eyes that reminded me uncomfortably of my own. She wore jeans and a cardigan, the kind of outfit I might have chosen for a casual Saturday. Emma, she said softly. Thank you for coming. I know this must be overwhelming. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Please, come in. Can I get you some water? Coffee? The hotel room was standard, unremarkable. She'd made the bed, placed her suitcase neatly by the window. There were photos spread across the small table by the window, and a manila folder thick with documents. "I don't understand," I said, finding my voice. "Michael told me you died. He said it was a car accident." Sarah's expression softened with something that looked like sympathy. "Michael has always been good at telling people what they need to hear. It's one of his gifts. It's also one of his problems." She gestured to the chair across from her. I sat down slowly, my eyes drawn to the photos on the table. I could see Michael in several of them, younger but unmistakably him. And beside him, Sarah, laughing, dancing, looking at him with the same adoring expression I'd worn in 1,000 photos of my own. "How long were you married?" I asked. "For years. We divorced 2 years ago, but the process was complicated. There were reasons it couldn't be finalized immediately." "What kind of reasons?" Sarah reached for the manila folder. "Financial reasons. Legal reasons. Michael had gotten involved in some business ventures that went very wrong. When I tried to leave, he convinced me that if I filed for divorce right away, I'd be liable for debts I had nothing to do with." She pulled out a stack of papers. "These are bank statements, loan documents, legal filings. Michael had borrowed against our house, taken out credit cards in both our names, invested in schemes that were borderline fraudulent. When everything collapsed, he owed over $200,000. I stared at the papers, the numbers swimming before my eyes. 200,000? He promised me that if I waited, if I disappeared for a while and let him handle everything, he could protect me from the fallout. He said he needed time to sort it out, to make sure I wouldn't lose everything too." "So you just left?" "I moved to Oregon. Got a job, a small apartment, started over. Michael said he'd contact me when it was safe to come back, when the divorce could go through without ruining my credit or making me responsible for his debts." "That was 2 years ago." "Yes. Why are you here now? Why today?" Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. "Because last week, I got a call from a lawyer. Michael's been using our marriage certificate to apply for loans. He's been telling creditors that he has a wife, that our assets are joint, that I'm a silent partner in his new business ventures." The room spun slightly. "What new business ventures?" "Emma, what do you know about Michael's finances?" "About how?" "He's paying for your wedding, your honeymoon, the down payment on the house you're buying together." I thought about the whirlwind of the last 6 months. Michael had insisted on paying for everything, had brushed off my offers to contribute. He'd said business was going well, that he wanted to spoil me, that this was his gift to us. He said his consulting firm was doing well, that he'd landed some big contracts. Sarah's expression grew gentle, pitying. "Emma, Michael doesn't have a consulting firm. He hasn't had steady income in over a year. Everything he's spending on you, on this new life, is borrowed money. Money he's getting by claiming he has a wife who's co-signing for the loans." "But you're not co-signing anything." "No. But our marriage is still legally valid. The divorce was never finalized. And Michael's been very careful about which documents he shows to which people." I felt like I was falling, like the ground had opened up beneath me. Are you saying I can't marry him today? That it wouldn't be legal?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning, the distant sound of traffic from the street below, the beating of my own heart in my ears. "There's more," Sarah said gently. "And I think you need to hear all of it before you decide what to do." I looked at her, this woman who shared my taste in cardigans and had once loved the same man I thought I was going to marry in 3 hours. "Tell me everything." She reached for another photo, this one showing Michael with a group of people I didn't recognize. "Do you know about Rebecca?" "Who's Rebecca?" "The woman he was engaged to while he was telling me about his divorce lawyer. The woman he left when he met you." The room tilted again. I gripped the arms of my chair, feeling like I might slide right out of my own life. "Michael has a pattern, Emma. He finds women who are kind, trusting, financially stable. He makes them fall in love with him, and then he uses their love to solve his problems. He was planning to marry Rebecca and use her inheritance to pay off his debts. When that fell through, he found you." "No." The word came out as a whisper. "No, that's not. Michael loves me. He's not like that." Sarah's eyes filled with compassion. "I thought the same thing once. I thought I was special, that what we had was different. But Emma, love and manipulation can look very similar from the inside. She handed me another document. This is a credit report I pulled on him last week. Look at the dates of the loan applications. They correspond exactly with major milestones in your relationship. The week after he met you, he applied for a personal loan. The week after you moved in together, he increased his credit limits. The week after he proposed, he took out a second mortgage on a house he doesn't even own. I stared at the paper, at the neat rows of numbers that told the story of my love affair from a perspective I'd never considered. Every romantic gesture, every surprise trip, every expensive dinner mapped out in borrowed money and false promises. The house we're buying, I said slowly. He said he was putting down 20%. He doesn't have 20%. He doesn't have 2%. He's been planning to use your savings account for the down payment. The one you've been adding to every month, thinking you're building a life together. My savings account. The one I'd been contributing to for 3 years, dreaming about our future. The one Michael had insisted be joint, so we could build our life together as a team. How do you know about my savings account? Sarah pulled out a bank statement with both our names on it. Because he's been moving money from it to cover his other debts. Small amounts, nothing you'd notice unless you were looking carefully. But over the past 6 months, he's taken nearly $15,000. I thought about my bank statements, how I'd glanced at them each month without really studying them. The balance had seemed lower than I'd expected lately, but Michael had explained that away with talk of automatic bill pays and wedding expenses. Why? I asked, my voice barely audible. Why would he do this to me? Because he's desperate. Because he's been running from his problems for so long that he can't see any other way out. And because he's very good at convincing himself that his lies are actually kindnesses. Sarah reached across the table and touched my hand gently. Emma, I know. This is a lot. I know it changes everything. But you need to understand that Michael isn't a monster. He's a man who makes terrible choices and then tells himself stories to justify them. He probably does love you, in his way. But his love is tangled up with need and desperation and a complete inability to tell the truth about who he is. I pulled my hand away, needing space to think. If all of this is true, why didn't you try to warn me sooner? Why wait until my wedding day? Because I didn't know about you until last week. When the lawyer called about the fraudulent loan applications, I hired a private investigator to find out what Michael had been up to. That's when I learned about you, about the wedding, about how deep he'd gotten into this new deception. She pulled out a manila envelope and handed it to me. This is everything the investigator found. Bank records, credit reports, photos, even recordings of some phone calls he made to lenders. I'm giving it all to you because you deserve to know the truth before you make a decision that will legally bind you to his problems. I held the envelope without opening it. It felt heavy, weighted with the ruins of everything I'd believed about my life. What happened to Rebecca? The other woman he was engaged to? She found out about the financial lies about 6 months before their wedding. She confronted him, and when he couldn't provide satisfactory answers, she left. She was lucky. She discovered his patterns before she was legally tied to them. And you? How did you find out? Sarah's smile was sad, knowing. The same way you are. Someone came to me with evidence I couldn't ignore. A bank employee who noticed inconsistencies in loan applications. She took the risk of warning me because she'd seen too many women get destroyed by this kind of financial fraud. I thought about my own life, about all the small signs I'd dismissed or explained away. The way Michael always paid for everything in cash. The way he deflected questions about his business. The way he'd been so eager to combine our finances, to make everything joint and shared. There's something else, Sarah said softly. Something that made me realize I had to come here today, no matter how much it might hurt you. I looked up at her, wondering what could possibly be worse than everything she'd already told me. Emma, you're not the only one. Michael isn't just planning to marry you while still married to me. He's been seeing other women, building relationships with them the same way he built one with you. The investigator found evidence of at least 2 others. The words hit me like a physical blow. I doubled over slightly, struggling to breathe. I know, Sarah continued, her voice gentle but relentless. I know it's almost impossible to believe. But he's been telling each of you different stories, making each of you think you're the only one who really understands him. She pulled out photos of Michael with two other women, both of whom looked similar to me and to Sarah. Same general age, same trusting smile, same adoring expression as they looked at him. Their names are Amanda and Jessica. Amanda lives in Atlanta. She thinks Michael is divorced and working on building a business there. He's been borrowing money from her to fund his other relationships. Jessica lives in Nashville. She thinks he's a widower who's finally ready to love again. I stared at the photos, at these women who could have been my sisters, all of us caught in the same beautiful lie. How long? I whispered. The investigator thinks he's been running these multiple relationships for at least 8 months. Maybe longer. 8 months. That covered our engagement, our move-in together, the planning of our wedding. All the while, Michael had been building the same dream with other women, promising them the same future he'd promised me. I stood up abruptly, needing to move, needing to do something with the energy that was building inside me like a scream. I have to go, I said. I have to. I need to think. Sarah nodded. I understand. But Emma, before you leave, I need you to know something. Whatever you decide to do, you're not alone. I know how isolating this feels, how much it makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. But you didn't deserve this. None of this is your fault. I turned to look at her, this woman who'd been where I was standing now. What did you do? When you found out? I disappeared. I was so ashamed, so humiliated, that I just ran. I let him convince me that staying quiet was the right thing to do, that protecting him was somehow protecting myself too. It was the worst decision I ever made. Why? Because silence lets people like Michael keep hurting people. Because my silence meant you got hurt too. And Amanda and Jessica. And whoever comes next if this pattern doesn't stop. I picked up the envelope of evidence, surprised by how much my hands were shaking. What would you do? I asked. If you were me, right now, what would you do? Sarah looked out the window, toward the church where my wedding was supposed to happen in less than 3 hours. I'd remember that the truth is always better than a beautiful lie. Even when it hurts. Even when it changes everything. The truth gives you choices. Lies just give you more lies. I nodded and headed for the door. Emma? Sarah called after me. Whatever you decide, decide for yourself. Not for him, not for what other people will think, not to avoid embarrassment. Decide based on what you can live with. Because you're the one who has to live with the consequences. I left the hotel room with my arms full of evidence and my mind full of questions. In the elevator, I caught sight of myself in the mirrored walls and was surprised by how different I looked. Not broken, exactly, but changed. Like someone who'd just learned something important about the world and about herself. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Vendors are all on standby. How did it go? I stared at the message, trying to figure out how to summarize the complete destruction of everything I'd believed about my life in a text message. Instead, I typed, on my way back. Call Michael. Tell him I need to see him in 1 hour. Alone. As I drove back toward my childhood home, toward my wedding dress and my carefully planned future, I thought about the choice Sarah had given me. The truth versus the beautiful lie. For 2 years, I'd been living inside Michael's beautiful lie, building my dreams on foundations that didn't exist. But now I had something I'd never had before. I had the truth. And with the truth came power, real power, to choose what came next. The question was, what was I brave enough to choose? When I pulled into my parents' driveway, Jessica was waiting on the front porch with 2 cups of coffee and the kind of expression that meant she'd been rehearsing what to say. I sat beside her on the swing my father had built when I was 8. The manila envelope heavy in my lap. So, Jessica said carefully. On a scale of 1 to calling off the wedding entirely, how bad is it? I laughed, a sound that came out sharper than I intended. There isn't going to be a wedding. At least, not the one we planned. Jessica set down her coffee cup. Okay. Tell me everything. So I did. I told her about Sarah being alive, about the financial fraud, about the other women, about the pattern of lies that stretched back years. Jessica listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each revelation. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I'm going to kill him, she said finally. Get in line. Emma, I'm so sorry. I should have. There were signs, weren't there? Things that didn't quite add up. I thought about it. Maybe. But I was so in love with the version of himself he showed me that I didn't want to see anything else. And he was very good at having explanations for everything. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, a car pulled into the driveway. Michael's silver BMW, the one he'd bought 6 months ago with what I now knew was borrowed money. He stepped out slowly, like a man walking to his execution. He's here, I said. Jessica stood up. Do you want me to stay? I shook my head. This is something I need to do alone. She squeezed my shoulder. I'll be inside if you need me. And Emma? Whatever you decide, I'm proud of you for facing this head on. Michael walked up the path slowly. He looked like he hadn't slept, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his shirt wrinkled. When he reached the porch, he stopped at the bottom of the steps, as if asking permission to come closer. Emma, he said, and his voice broke on my name. Sit, I said, gesturing to the chair across from the swing. He climbed the steps and sat down heavily. For a moment, we just looked at each other. This man I'd loved for 2 years, planned to marry in 3 hours, share my life with forever. Now he looked like a stranger wearing Michael's face. How much of it is true? I asked. He closed his eyes. All of it. Sarah is alive. Yes. You're still married to her. Legally, yes. The divorce was never finalized. You've been stealing from my savings account. He flinched. I was borrowing. I was going to pay it back. With what money, Michael? You don't have any money. You don't even have a job. I have prospects. There are deals in the works, investors who are interested. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop lying. I can't take any more lies. He opened his mouth, then closed it. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between us. The other women, I said finally. Amanda and Jessica. Tell me about them. Michael's face crumpled. Emma, please. Can we focus on us? On what we have? What we have is built on lies. So tell me about them. He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, they're good people. Like you. They deserve better than what I've given them. Are you sleeping with them? No. It's not like that. I care about all of you, but in different ways. You're the one I want to marry. You're the one I love. You can't marry me, Michael. You're already married. The divorce will go through. I just need more time. How much time? How much more time do you need to sort out a divorce you started 2 years ago? How much more time do you need to find a job, to stop living off borrowed money and other people's savings accounts? He didn't answer. Do Amanda and Jessica know about me? No. Do they know about each other? No. Jesus, Michael. I leaned back in the swing, suddenly exhausted. How did you keep track of it all? The different stories, the different promises? I don't know. I kept thinking I could fix everything. That if I could just buy enough time, make enough money, everything would work out. By lying to everyone who loved you. I never meant for it to get this complicated. I pulled out Sarah's manila envelope and set it on the table between us. This is everything. Bank records, credit reports, evidence of every loan application, every lie, every manipulation. Sarah gave it all to me. Michael stared at the envelope. Like it might bite him. Why? I asked. Why did you tell me she was dead? Because it was easier than explaining the truth. Because the truth made me look like a failure. The truth is that you are a failure, Michael. At least, you're failing at being an honest person. He winced but didn't argue. When did it start? When did you become someone who could lie this easily? He was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. I think it started small. Little lies to avoid disappointing people. Then bigger lies to fix the problems the small lies created. By the time I met you, I was so deep in lies that telling the truth felt impossible. But you kept digging deeper. I kept thinking I could dig my way out. That if I could just make enough money, pay off enough debts, I could go back and fix everything retroactively. By stealing from my savings account. I was going to pay it back with interest. I have some investments that should pay off soon, Michael. I said his name firmly, like calling a dog to heel. There are no investments. There are no prospects. There is no money coming. There's just more debt and more lies. He slumped forward, his head in his hands. I know, okay? I know it's all falling apart. But Emma, I love you. That part is real. Everything I feel for you is real. How can I believe that when everything else has been a lie? Because you know me. You know who I am when I'm with you. No, I know who you pretended to be when you were with me. I have no idea who you actually are. I stood up and walked to the porch railing, needing distance from him. In the street, a family was loading up their car for what looked like a beach trip. Normal people doing normal things on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. What happens now? Michael asked quietly. Now you're going to call Amanda and Jessica and tell them the truth. All of it. Emma, no. You don't get to keep them in the dark just because it's convenient for you. They deserve to know what they're involved in. And then what? Then you're going to figure out how to pay back the money you stole from me. You're going to deal with your creditors honestly. And you're going to finalize your divorce from Sarah so she can move on with her life. What about us? I turned to look at him. He looked young sitting there, younger than his 32 years. Like a boy who'd been caught in a lie and didn't understand why his charm wasn't working to get him out of trouble. There is no us, Michael. There can't be. I can't build a life with someone I don't trust. But I'll change. I'll go to therapy, I'll get help, you'll say whatever you think I want to hear, just like you always have. That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I spent my savings on a wedding to a man who's already married? Is it fair that 2 other women are sitting somewhere right now, probably planning their own futures with you? Is it fair that Sarah has been in hiding for 2 years because of your financial crimes? He didn't answer. You know what's not fair, Michael? What's not fair is that I'm sitting here on what should be my wedding day, explaining to you why lying and stealing and fraud are wrong. What's not fair is that you've made me doubt my own judgment, my own worth, my own ability to recognize love when I see it. I do love you. Maybe you do, in your way. But your love comes with too high a price. It costs money I don't have, trust one can't afford to lose, and pieces of myself I'm not willing to give up. I walked back to the swing and sat down, suddenly feeling older than my 28 years. I need you to leave now, I said. Emma, please. Can't we at least talk about this? Work through it together? There's nothing to work through. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. Michael stood up slowly. What should I tell people? About the wedding? Tell them the truth. For once in your life, just tell the truth. He walked to the edge of the porch, then turned back. I really do love you, you know. That was never a lie. I know, I said, and I meant it. But love isn't enough when it comes with this much damage. After he left, I sat on the porch swing for a long time, watching the world go by. Neighbors walking. Dogs, kids riding bikes, couples holding hands. All of it looked the same as it had this morning, but everything felt different. Jessica came out eventually and sat beside me without saying anything. We swung gently back and forth, the chains creaking softly. How are you doing? She asked finally. I don't know yet. Ask me in a few months. Do you want to talk about it? Not yet. But I need to make some phone calls. Cancel the vendors, call the guests. I can do that for you. No. I need to do it myself. I need to practice saying what happened without falling apart. Jessica nodded. What do you want me to tell people who ask what they can do to help? I thought about it. Tell them to be patient with me while I figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be the person Michael needed me to be. That afternoon, I called our wedding guests one by one. I kept the explanation simple. Michael had lied about fundamental aspects of his life, including the fact that he was still married to someone else. The wedding was off, the relationship was over, and I was okay. Most people were shocked, sympathetic, appropriately outraged on my behalf. A few asked intrusive questions I didn't answer. My cousin Mark, who'd never liked Michael, said, I always knew there was something off about that guy, which didn't help but wasn't entirely unwelcome either. The hardest call was to my parents, who were at the venue setting up decorations. My mother cried. My father offered to have a conversation with Michael that sounded more like a threat. I talked them both down and asked them to come home. When they arrived, I was sitting in the kitchen with Sarah's evidence spread across the table like pieces of a puzzle I'd finally learned to solve. Sweetheart, my mother said, wrapping me in a hug that smelled like her perfume and hairspray. I'm so sorry. I'm okay, Mom. Really. My father sat down across from me and picked up one of the bank statements. This son of a bitch was stealing. From you? Dad. No, I'm serious. This is fraud. You could press charges. I'd been thinking about that all afternoon. Maybe. But right now I just want him out of my life. What about the house? The one you two were supposed to buy together. There is no house. The down payment was my money he'd already spent on other things. The mortgage application was based on lies about his income and assets. My parents exchanged a look. Emma. My mother said carefully, how much money are we talking about? How much did he take? I pulled out the bank statements Sarah had given me. About $22,000, total. 15 from my savings, 7 from joint credit cards he opened. In both our names. My father's jaw tightened. We can cover that. We can help you get back on your feet. I don't want you to cover it. I want him to pay it back. That might not be realistic, honey, my mother said gently. If he's as deep in debt as you say, then he can get a job and pay it back slowly. But I'm not letting him off the hook. Just because it's inconvenient for him to face the consequences of his choices. My father smiled for the first time that day. That's my girl. Over the next few weeks, I learned things about myself I'd never known before. I learned that I was stronger than I'd thought, more resilient, more capable of handling crisis without falling apart. I also learned that I'd been smaller than I'd realized. For 2 years, I'd been trying to fit myself into the shape Michael needed, making myself quieter, less ambitious, more accommodating. I'd told myself it was love, but it had really been fear. Fear that if I was too much myself, he might leave now. That he was gone, I found myself expanding back into spaces I'd forgotten I used to occupy. I started taking evening classes in photography, something I'd always wanted to do but had set aside because Michael thought it was a waste of time. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from because they hadn't fit into the life Michael was building for us. Most surprisingly, I kept in touch with Sarah. She'd given me her phone number before I left the hotel, and a week after the wedding I called her. How are you holding up? She asked. Better than I expected. Worse than I hoped. How about you? About the same. I filed for divorce again, by the way. For real this time. I found a lawyer who specializes in cases involving financial fraud. Good for you. Emma, can I ask you something? Do you regret it? Finding out the truth? I thought about it. No. I regret that it took so long. I regret that I ignored signs I should have paid attention to. But I don't regret knowing the truth. Even though it changed everything? Especially because it changed everything. I was living in a fantasy, Sarah. A beautiful fantasy, but a fantasy nonetheless. Real life is messier and scarier, but it's also more honest. And I'd rather have an honest mess than a beautiful lie. 3 months later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a woman's voice said, "Is this Emma? Emma Harrison?" Yes. Who is this? My name is Amanda. Amanda Collins. I think we have something in common. I sat down slowly. Michael. Yes. I got your number from Sarah. She said you might be willing to talk to me. I met Amanda for coffee the next day. She looked like she could have been my sister, same build, same coloring, same tendency to twist her wedding ring when she was nervous. Except she wasn't wearing a wedding ring anymore. When did you find out? I asked. 2 weeks ago. He came clean about everything when the private investigator Sarah hired started asking questions around Atlanta. His creditors were closing in, and he decided confession was easier than having the truth discovered. How are you holding up? I'm angry. She said simply. I'm angry and humiliated, and I feel like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. You're not an idiot. He's very good at what he does. Were you angry? I thought about it. Yes. But more than angry, I was disappointed. In him, but also in myself. For settling for less than I deserved because I was afraid of being alone. Amanda nodded. That's exactly it. I kept thinking, at least he loves me, at least I have someone, even when things didn't quite add up. What are you going to do now? Start over, I guess. What else is there to do? We talked for 2 hours, comparing stories, sharing details. Helping each other fill in the gaps in Michael's timeline of deception. It was painful but also healing, to know that I wasn't alone in my experience, that my judgment hadn't been uniquely flawed. As we were leaving, Amanda said, Sarah mentioned. There was a third woman. Jessica? In Nashville, yes. Have you talked to her? Sarah gave me her number, but I haven't called yet. I wasn't sure if it would help or just make things worse. Call her, I said. It helps to know you're not crazy, that the things that didn't make sense really didn't make sense. Will you call her too? Yes. I think all four of us should meet. Not to bash Michael or plot revenge, but to help each other heal. A month later, all four of us, me, Sarah, Amanda, and Jessica, met for a weekend in Nashville. Jessica turned out to be a kindergarten teacher with a laugh that filled entire rooms and a tendency to cry at commercials. She'd been with Michael for 8 months and had been planning to quit her job and move to be closer to him. The crazy thing, she said over dinner on Saturday night, is that I kept thinking something was off about his schedule. He was always traveling for business, always had emergencies that meant he couldn't see me. But he was so apologetic, so loving when he was there, that I convinced myself I was being needy. He made us all feel like we were asking for too much, Sarah said. Like wanting honesty and consistency made us high maintenance. Do you think he planned it that way? Amanda asked. Or do you think he just stumbled into this pattern? I think he's someone who takes the path of least resistance, I said. Lying was easier than facing his problems. Keeping us separate was easier than choosing. Taking our money was easier than getting a job. But why did it take him so long to get caught? Jessica asked. 2 years, 3 relationships, all that fraud, how did he keep it going? Because we all wanted to believe him, Sarah said quietly. Because the version of himself he showed us was exactly what each of us needed at the time. That was the truth that hurt most. Not that Michael had lied, but that his lies had been so perfectly calibrated to what we wanted to hear. He'd studied each of us, learned our vulnerabilities, our dreams, our fears, and crafted a persona designed to make us fall in love with him. Do you think he loved any of us? Amanda asked. Really loved us? I think he loved the way we made him feel about himself, I said. But I don't think he ever loved us enough to tell us the truth about who he was. That night, I lay in my hotel bed thinking about love and truth and the difference between them. I'd loved Michael deeply, genuinely, completely. But I'd loved a fiction, a carefully constructed character he'd played for my benefit, the real Michael, broke, desperate, dishonest, trapped in a web of his own making. I'd never known at all. It had been 6 months since my wedding day. That wasn't 6 months since I'd learned that the life I'd been building was a mirage, beautiful from a distance but insubstantial when examined closely. I wouldn't say I was grateful for the experience, but I was grateful for what it had taught me. About the difference between love and infatuation. About the importance of trusting my instincts. About the value of friends who tell you the truth even when it hurts. Most importantly, I'd learned that I could survive having my world fall apart. That I was strong enough to face difficult truths, brave enough to start over, honest enough to admit when I'd been wronged. I still believed in love. But now I believed in a different kind of love, the kind that came with honesty, consistency, and the courage to be vulnerable without being deceptive, the kind of love that didn't require anyone to pretend to be someone they weren't, the kind of love that was worth waiting for. The morning after our Nashville weekend, I drove home to a life that was smaller than the one I'd planned but infinitely more honest. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, so eager to be loved that she'd ignored every warning sign, so afraid of being alone that she'd accepted crumbs and called them a feast. I thought about the woman I was becoming, more careful, but not cynical, more guarded but not closed off, more aware of what she deserved and less willing to accept anything less. It wasn't the ending I'd planned for my love story. But it was an ending I could live with, and sometimes, that's the most important kind of happy ending there is. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.